What's up, family? I want to take a different look at what it means to forgive and the power of forgiveness. It's going to be a little deep, but it should be all right. Forgive. First, we have to understand that there's a prefix for ahead. Okay. Um, give the, the the root word. Give ahead. Forgive. To give ahead. What do I mean? No one necessarily has to ask you to forgive them. You give that ahead of them asking you to forgive them. Genuine forgiveness is given before they even ask. Genuine forgiveness is given whether they ask for it or not, whether they change or not. To forgive. If someone asks you to forgive them and you say that you forgive them, and if you just store that away in the back of your memory banks and bring that out as your get out of jail free card, or anytime you get pissed, you bring that subject back up, you haven't forgiven them. You said it, but you didn't forgive them. And just because somebody asks you to forgive them doesn't mean that they're willing to change. It doesn't mean that they're going to change. It doesn't even mean that they're apologetic for what they did. We forgive. And we forgive not because the other person is warranted, deserves it, is apologetic. That's not why we forgive. We forgive to disconnect that negative energy, to cut off that cord, to cut that bind to that wound that hurt us. You can hold on to it for as long as you want to. But in order to grow, you're going to have to forgive. And you forgive to eliminate, to detach all of that negative energy. You're releasing it. That's what forgiving is. It's giving ahead. Whether you deserve it or not, that's not even an issue. Whether you're apologetic or not, that's not the issue. That has absolutely nothing to do with why I forgive. I forgive because I no longer want that attachment. I forgive because I no longer want that cord of negative energy attached to me. So I forgive and cut off that cord. So I'm no longer carrying that drama around with me. I'm no longer carrying that negative energy with me. To forgive. But here's a very interesting aspect of forgiving that we have to really take a look at. To forgive somebody means that you stood in judgment of them. You deemed their action as wrong. You deemed what they did as whatever you want to look at it as. So you stood in a place of judgment over that person. You condemned their actions. Because the reality is, if you didn't judge their actions as wrong as being whatever it is, you wouldn't have a reason to forgive them. There is no forgiveness when there's no judgment. There's no need for forgiveness when there's no need for judgment. When you don't judge somebody, then you don't need to forgive somebody. Let me say it again. If you're not judgmental, if you're not judging somebody else's actions, then there's no need to forgive them. It's because it's the judgment that attaches you. It's not what they did. It's your judgment of what they did that now connects you energetically with that negativity, with that drama, whatever you want to associate it or call it. It's your judgment of it. When there's no judgment, there's no need for forgiveness. So often we're so judgmental of ourselves. We'll beat down ourselves because we shoulda, woulda, coulda, and we should be better than what we are. We should further along, and we should have this, and we should have that, and all this other stupid stuff that we judge ourselves as being messed up in. Man, I was so stupid for hooking up with that person. Man, I made this stupid decision, and man, I shouldn't have did this, and man, I shouldn't have did that. And we're so hard on ourselves. That's judgment. You could fix it up, put lipstick on it, put a dress on it, call it whatever you want to call it. But it's judgment. And so because there's judgment, there now has to be forgiveness. And see, here's the trick. We say we forgive people for their faults or for their wrongdoings. But how often do we turn around then and say, dang, I was wrong for even judging them, and now need to ask for forgiveness. See, it's one thing to look at somebody else's issues and somebody else's faults and shortcomings and like, oh, you shouldn't have did that and you screwed up and you whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop. You're judging. You could call it keeping it real, keeping it 100, whatever you want to call it. It's judgment. And it's crazy because we get pissed off because people won't ask for forgiveness for the crazy stuff that they did. And yet you're not asking for forgiveness for even judging the craziness that they did. This is a deeper level of forgiveness. This is a deeper level of growth and development. Now, I understand everybody ain't at this point. But it still needs to be addressed. It still needs to be talked about. Forgiveness is only warranted when judgment has been rendered. When there is no judgment, there's no need for forgiveness. When you stop being so judgmental, then you don't have to forgive people. But we don't want to look at us. We want to look at what they did wrong, what they didn't do, what they should have done, and we judge it. And their actions, I don't have a heaven, hell, I don't judge in that regard. Whether they should have did or not, it's not up for me to say. That's something they got to deal with. But the fact is, how am I going to respond to it? How am I going to respond to their actions? Am I going to respond to their actions out of judgment? Or am I going to respond to their actions out of love, out of understanding? That's the choice that we have to make. Forget their issues. And when I mean forget their issue, don't get it twisted. There's some people that I've forgiven. I don't even associate with anymore. I don't contact them, and I don't allow them to contact me. I have no connection with them whatsoever. Not because I haven't forgiven them. I forgave them, but I no longer trust them. And just because you forgive somebody doesn't mean that you have to have a relationship with them. You got to have healthy boundaries, first and foremost. And so, although you forgive them, if you know that they haven't changed, and if you know that they're not apologetic, okay, you know that they're going to keep doing it. So don't put yourself in that situation to keep getting lied to keep getting cheated on, to keep getting mistreated, to keep getting abused. That's your fault for keep putting yourself in that situation when you know that they haven't changed. You need to cut off those cords. You need to cut off that connection. It's all about growth and development. But the point is to stop looking at what other people are doing. Stop being fixated on their actions. And look at how you respond to their actions. Do you respond out of your ego and get pissed and judgmental? Do you respond out of your ego and become victimized and woe is me and everybody's mistreating me and blah, 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 and standing in judgment still? Or do you respond out of love? Do you respond out of compassion? Do you respond out of understanding that we're all flawed? My hope and prayer is that you understand that when you're not judging, you don't have to forgive. And that when you forgive, you give that ahead of them having to ask you. You give forgiveness because you want to cut off that negativity. You want to cut off and disconnect that negative energy. You want to detach that from yourself. You don't want to carry that baggage around with you. I love you guys.